Imagine if everything you thought you knew about a foundational story was built on a mistranslation. What if the tale of Eve's creation, a cornerstone of cultural beliefs about gender, held an entirely different meaning? This is not just a question of semantics, it's about uncovering truths that could redefine how we perceive equality, relationships, and the very nature of human existence. Today, we'll explore the original Hebrew texts and challenge centuries-old interpretations that have shaped societies. Stay tuned to discover the profound implications of a single word and what it means for our understanding of balance and unity. The traditional interpretation of Eve's creation is deeply ingrained in the collective consciousness of many cultures. In Genesis 2 verses 21 to 22, the story unfolds with God placing Adam into a deep sleep and forming Eve from one of his ribs. This narrative has been passed down through generations as a literal explanation for the origin of women, but its implications stretch far beyond simple storytelling. It has influenced how men and women view themselves, their roles in relationships, and their place in society. For centuries, this account has been used to justify gender hierarchies, portraying women as derivative creations meant to serve or complement men. Religious leaders, scholars, and cultural authorities have drawn on this interpretation to argue that women occupy a secondary position in the divine order. The idea that Eve was formed from Adam's rib reinforces the notion that women are a part of men, created after and for them, thus supporting patriarchal views. But what if this interpretation is flawed? What if the text, when examined more closely, offers a different perspective? The original Hebrew language of the Old Testament holds nuances that are often lost in translation. Words carry layers of meaning, and sometimes, mistranslations can have far-reaching consequences, shaping ideologies and systems of thought for millennia. The word rib, as commonly understood in the context of Eve's creation, comes from the Hebrew term Sila. Yet, when scholars and linguists analyze the use of Sila throughout the Bible, an intriguing pattern emerges. In other contexts, this word is not translated as rib but as side or lateral part. This raises the question, why was it rendered differently in Genesis? Understanding this discrepancy is key to unraveling the story's deeper meaning. When we interpret Sila as side, the entire narrative changes. Eve is no longer a secondary creation formed from a small, insignificant part of Adam but an equal counterpart, taken from his side to stand beside him. This reimagining of the text challenges deeply entrenched gender norms and offers a more inclusive vision of human relationships. Such a reinterpretation invites us to question the structures that have been built on the traditional reading. If Eve was not made from a rib but from Adam's side, what does that say about the intended relationship between men and women? Could it mean that equality and partnership were divine intentions from the very beginning? These questions open the door to a more profound understanding of Genesis and its implications for our modern world. As we delve deeper into the biblical language and its context, we begin to see how a single mistranslation could have shaped entire cultures. Words matter, and the meanings we ascribe to them can influence our perceptions, beliefs, and behaviors. Recognizing this allows us to approach ancient texts with fresh eyes and uncover truths that have been obscured by time and tradition. Language is one of humanity's most powerful tools. It shapes our thoughts, builds our cultures, and informs how we interpret the world around us. In religious texts, every word carries weight, and translations must bridge not only languages but also cultures and time periods. This is particularly true for the Bible, where translations have influenced the beliefs of billions of people. The word Sila, central to the story of Eve's creation, is a perfect example of how language can transform meaning. In Hebrew, Sila appears over 40 times in the Old Testament, often in contexts where it is translated as side or lateral part. For example, in the construction of the Ark of the Covenant and the Temple, Sila refers to structural sides. Yet, in Genesis 2 verses 21 to 22, translators chose to render it as rib. This decision was not without consequence, as it framed the story in a way that reinforced certain cultural biases about gender. Why was rib chosen over side? Scholars suggest that early translators may have been influenced by existing societal norms. By the time the Bible was translated into Latin and later English, patriarchal structures were deeply entrenched. The idea of woman being created from a man's rib aligned with the prevailing view that women were secondary to men. This choice of translation was not merely linguistic, it was cultural. When we consider the broader implications of translating Sila as rib, the significance becomes clear. It suggests that women are derived from men, perpetuating a narrative of dependence and subordination. Over time, this interpretation has seeped into religious teachings, societal norms, and even legal systems, shaping the way gender roles are understood. Revisiting the original Hebrew opens the door to new possibilities. If Sila means side, it implies equality and mutual partnership. Eve would no longer be seen as a derivative creation but as an integral part of Adam, standing by his side as an equal. This subtle shift in language has profound implications for how we view gender relationships in both spiritual and societal contexts. Language is not static, it evolves with time. However, when ancient texts are translated, they carry the weight of the translator's perspective. A single word can create a ripple effect, influencing interpretations for centuries. Recognizing this empowers us to approach translations critically, seeking not only accuracy but also a deeper understanding of the cultural and historical contexts in which these texts were written. In reevaluating the translation of Sila, we gain more than a linguistic insight. We reclaim a narrative that emphasizes unity and equality, challenging the long-held assumptions that have shaped patriarchal societies. This reinterpretation invites us to question what other mistranslations might have influenced our understanding of ancient texts and their messages. To fully appreciate the impact of the mistranslation of Sila, we must place it within its historical context. The story of Eve's creation has been interpreted and reinterpreted across centuries, each time influenced by the prevailing societal structures and norms. By the time the Bible was widely translated into Latin, Greek, and English, patriarchal values were deeply ingrained in both religious institutions and society at large. During the medieval period, the Church was one of the most powerful institutions in the world, shaping not only spiritual beliefs but also societal hierarchies. Women were often viewed as inherently inferior, both physically and spiritually, to men. This perspective was supported by interpretations of the creation story that positioned Eve, and by extension, all women, as subordinate to Adam. The mistranslation of Sila as rib conveniently aligned with this worldview. It provided a theological foundation for gender inequality, suggesting that women were created from a lesser part of man and therefore belonged in a subordinate role. This narrative was used to justify limitations on women's roles in religious leadership, education, and public life. Even as societies evolved, this interpretation persisted. During the Enlightenment, when reason and science began to challenge traditional beliefs, the story of Eve's creation remained a cultural touchstone. It continued to influence gender norms, reinforcing the idea that men were the natural leaders and women their helpers. However, historical records reveal that earlier Jewish traditions did not always interpret Sila as rib. Some Jewish scholars emphasize the partnership between Adam and Eve, viewing them as equals created to complement one another. These interpretations were overshadowed as Christianity became the dominant religious force in Europe, bringing with it new translations that reflected Greco-Roman and medieval values. Understanding the historical context of the mistranslation helps us see how religious texts are not interpreted in a vacuum. They are shaped by the cultures and societies in which they are read. By revisiting these texts with an awareness of their historical layers, we can uncover meanings that were lost or obscured over time. This historical perspective also invites us to reflect on the power dynamics at play in translation. Who decides how a text is translated, and whose interests do these decisions serve? In the case of Sila, the choice to translate it as rib reinforced existing power structures, perpetuating a narrative of gender inequality that continues to influence our world today. If we accept that Sila should be translated as side rather than rib, the theological implications are profound. This reinterpretation challenges the traditional view of gender roles and invites us to see the creation story as one of equality and partnership. Instead of a narrative that places women in a subordinate position, we find a story that celebrates unity in shared purpose. In Genesis 1 verse 27, it is written, "So God created mankind in his own image, in the image of God he created them, male and female he created them." This verse emphasizes that both men and women reflect the divine image. The reinterpretation of Sila aligns with this view, suggesting that Eve was not an afterthought or a secondary creation but an equal partner from the very beginning. This perspective shifts the focus from hierarchy to harmony. It suggests that men and women were designed to complement one another, each bringing unique strengths and perspectives to their shared humanity. This vision of equality is not only spiritually uplifting but also profoundly relevant in a world still grappling with issues of gender justice. Revisiting the creation story also challenges us to reconsider other theological assumptions. If Eve was created as an equal, what does this say about the nature of God's intention for humanity? It invites us to see God as a creator who values unity and balance, rather than dominance and subordination. This interpretation resonates with broader biblical themes of love, justice, and mutual respect. Furthermore, the reinterpretation of Sila encourages us to approach other biblical texts with fresh eyes. If one word can carry such profound implications, what other insights might we uncover by revisiting ancient scriptures in their original languages? This is not just an academic exercise, it is a spiritual journey that deepens our understanding of God's message. The theological implications of equality extend beyond the story of Adam and Eve. They challenge us to build communities that reflect this divine vision, where every individual is valued and respected. By embracing this perspective, we move closer to fulfilling the biblical call to love your neighbor as yourself. In a world where gender inequality remains a pressing issue, the reinterpretation of Sila offers a hopeful message. It reminds us that the foundations of our faith call us to equality, partnership, and mutual respect. This understanding can inspire us to work toward a more just and inclusive society. The mistranslation of Sila as rib has had far-reaching cultural consequences, shaping gender roles and expectations across societies. From religious doctrines to legal systems, the traditional interpretation of Eve's creation has influenced how men and women are perceived and treated for centuries. In many cultures, the idea that Eve was created from Adam's rib has been used to justify male dominance. Women were often seen as extensions of men, their purpose tied to supporting, serving, or complementing their male counterparts. This narrative reinforced patriarchal structures, limiting women's opportunities and roles in both public and private life. Religious institutions have played a significant role in perpetuating this view. For centuries, women were excluded from leadership positions within churches and synagogues, their contributions undervalued or ignored. The story of Eve's creation was often cited as evidence that women were not intended to lead but to follow. Beyond religion, this interpretation influenced broader cultural norms. In legal systems, women were historically denied rights to property, education, and political participation, their status often defined by their relationships to men. The story of Eve's creation became a symbolic justification for these inequalities, its message echoing through centuries of societal practice. However, the reinterpretation of Sila as side challenges these deeply rooted beliefs. It invites us to see the creation story not as a justification for inequality but as a call to unity and partnership. By revisiting this narrative, we can begin to dismantle the cultural norms that have perpetuated gender injustice. This shift in perspective also highlights the importance of language in shaping culture. When we revisit translations and interpretations, we open the door to new understandings that can transform how we see ourselves and one another. The reinterpretation of Sila is not just about correcting a mistranslation, it is about reclaiming a narrative of equality. Cultural change takes time, but it begins with challenging the stories we tell about ourselves. By re-examining the creation story, we take a step toward building a world where men and women are valued equally. This is not just a theoretical exercise, it is a practical step toward creating a more just and inclusive society. The reinterpretation of Sila as side provides a powerful opportunity to reframe traditional gender roles. For centuries, the story of Eve's creation has been used to support the idea that men are leaders and women are followers. This narrative has shaped not only religious beliefs but also societal expectations about what it means to be male or female. If we accept that Eve was created from Adam's side, the story takes on a new meaning. It suggests that men and women were designed to stand together as equals, each contributing to the flourishing of humanity. This perspective challenges the notion of hierarchical gender roles and invites us to embrace a more inclusive vision of partnership. Reframing gender roles begins with re-examining the assumptions we bring to biblical texts. For many, the traditional interpretation of Eve's creation has been taught as an unquestionable truth. Yet, as we have seen, the text itself offers room for a different understanding, one that celebrates equality and mutual respect. This reinterpretation also aligns with other biblical themes. Throughout the Bible, there are stories of women who defied societal norms and took on leadership roles. Deborah, Ruth, Esther, and Mary Magdalene are just a few examples of women whose contributions were integral to the biblical narrative. Their stories remind us that gender does not determine one's value or capabilities. By embracing a reinterpretation of Sila, we can challenge the cultural norms that have limited women's opportunities for leadership and contribution. This is not just about revisiting the past, it is about shaping the future. When we recognize the equal value of men and women, we create space for everyone to thrive. This shift in perspective also encourages us to reflect on the ways we teach and pass on biblical stories. How can we ensure that these narratives inspire equality rather than reinforce division? By teaching the creation story as one of partnership, we can instill values of respect and unity in future generations. Reframing gender roles is not an easy task, but it is a necessary one. It requires us to question long-held beliefs and confront the ways these beliefs have shaped our world. The reinterpretation of Sila is a step in this direction, offering a vision of humanity that celebrates diversity and shared purpose. Are you finding this journey into the deeper meaning of Eve's creation as fascinating as we are? If so, imagine unlocking even more insights into ancient texts and the profound truths they hold for our modern lives. Don't miss out on future explorations like this. Hit the subscribe button now and join our community of curious minds. Together, let's uncover the stories that inspire, challenge, and transform the way we see the world. Subscribe now and be part of this incredible journey. The reinterpretation of Sila as side resonates deeply with spiritual teachings that emphasize unity and mutual respect. Many religious traditions uphold the idea of balance as central to the human experience. By revisiting the story of Eve's creation through this lens, we uncover a narrative that aligns with these principles and challenges traditional views of hierarchy. In the Genesis creation story, God's act of forming Eve from Adam's side symbolizes not dependence but interdependence. This idea underscores the spiritual teaching that humanity thrives when individuals work together as equals, each contributing their unique strengths and perspectives. The reinterpretation of Sila amplifies this message, offering a vision of unity that transcends gender. Spiritual teachings across cultures often highlight the importance of harmony between opposites. In many traditions, the complementary forces of masculine and feminine are seen as essential for balance and wholeness. The idea of Eve being taken from Adam's side aligns with this concept, suggesting a relationship of partnership rather than dominance. The reinterpretation also reframes the role of women in spiritual narratives. For centuries, patriarchal interpretations of religious texts have marginalized women's contributions, often portraying them as secondary or supportive figures. By emphasizing equality in the creation story, we honor the spiritual significance of both men and women as co-creators in the divine plan. This perspective invites us to rethink the structures within religious communities. If men and women were created as equals, how can spiritual practices and institutions better reflect this truth? It challenges traditions that exclude women from leadership roles, urging a return to the biblical vision of shared responsibility and mutual respect. Moreover, the story of Eve's creation as an act of equality and unity serves as a spiritual model for all relationships. It calls us to approach others with humility, recognizing the divine image in every individual. This perspective not only enriches personal relationships but also fosters a sense of community and collective purpose. In embracing this reinterpretation, we reaffirm the spiritual teaching that humanity is strongest when united. It challenges us to build communities that reflect this divine balance, where every person's value is recognized and celebrated. The story of Adam and Eve becomes not just a tale of origins but a profound lesson in the power of equality. The reinterpretation of Sila as side opens the door to a broader exploration of women's roles in biblical narratives. While traditional interpretations often portray women as secondary figures, a closer examination of the Bible reveals a rich tapestry of stories highlighting their strength, wisdom, and leadership. One prominent example is Deborah, a prophetess and judge in the Book of Judges. Deborah's leadership during a time of crisis in Israel demonstrates that women were capable of holding positions of power and guiding their communities. Her story challenges the idea that women were created to be subordinate and instead highlights their capacity for leadership and decision-making. Another powerful narrative is the story of Ruth and Naomi. Their journey of resilience and loyalty illustrates the profound strength women bring to their families and communities. Ruth's commitment to Naomi and her eventual role in the lineage of King David underscore the importance of women's contributions to God's plan. In the New Testament, Mary Magdalene's role as the first witness to Jesus' resurrection offers a compelling example of women's spiritual significance. Despite societal norms that often excluded women from positions of authority, Mary Magdalene was chosen to deliver one of the most important messages in Christian history. This act elevates her role and demonstrates the divine recognition of women's value. Priscilla, another New Testament figure, serves as a teacher and collaborator with Paul in spreading the gospel. Her inclusion in the biblical narrative as an equal partner in ministry further supports the idea of shared leadership between men and women. These stories collectively challenge traditional interpretations that marginalize women. The reinterpretation of Eve's creation provides a foundation for recognizing these contributions. If women were created as equal partners to men, then their roles in biblical narratives are not anomalies but reflections of God's intention for humanity. This perspective invites us to celebrate the contributions of women as integral to the divine story. By highlighting women's roles in the Bible, we also gain a deeper understanding of the text's complexity. The stories of Deborah, Ruth, Mary Magdalene, and Priscilla remind us that biblical narratives are not one-dimensional. They contain layers of meaning that challenge cultural norms and offer profound lessons about equality and partnership. These examples encourage us to reflect on how we can honor the contributions of women in our own communities. By recognizing their value, we move closer to the biblical vision of a balanced and inclusive society. The reinterpretation of Sila as side becomes a call to action, urging us to build a world where everyone's contributions are celebrated. A single translation choice can have ripple effects that extend far beyond the text itself. The mistranslation of Sila as rib in Genesis is a prime example of how language shapes belief systems, cultural practices, and societal structures. Understanding these effects helps us appreciate the importance of revisiting and reevaluating ancient texts. The choice to translate Sila as rib reinforced existing patriarchal norms, influencing not only religious doctrine but also broader cultural attitudes. It provided a theological foundation for male dominance, which permeated legal systems, social norms, and educational practices. This single word became a cornerstone for justifying gender inequality across centuries. In religious contexts, this mistranslation shaped teachings about the roles of men and women. Women were often excluded from leadership positions, their contributions undervalued or ignored. The story of Eve's creation as a secondary being reinforced the idea that women were not meant to lead but to follow, a narrative that persists in some traditions to this day. The ripple effects extended to societal norms as well. In many cultures, women were denied rights and opportunities based on the belief that they were created to serve men. These limitations were often justified by religious teachings rooted in the mistranslation of Sila. The story of Eve's creation became a powerful tool for maintaining gender hierarchies. Revisiting the translation of Sila offers an opportunity to challenge these deeply rooted beliefs. By understanding Sila as side, we reclaim a narrative of equality and partnership. This reinterpretation not only corrects a linguistic error but also addresses the cultural and societal impacts of that error. The ripple effects of this reinterpretation are equally profound. It challenges us to rethink how we interpret other ancient texts, recognizing the cultural and historical contexts in which they were written. It also invites us to question the assumptions we bring to our understanding of gender roles and relationships. This process of reevaluation is not just about correcting the past, it is about shaping the future. By embracing a more accurate understanding of biblical texts, we can build a world that reflects the values of equality, unity, and mutual respect. The ripple effects of this reinterpretation can inspire generations to come. The reinterpretation of Sila as side shifts the creation story from one of hierarchy to one of unity. This narrative invites us to see Adam and Eve as equal partners, created to work together in harmony. It challenges traditional views of dominance and dependence, offering a vision of shared purpose and mutual respect. Unity is a recurring theme in the Bible, emphasized in stories of cooperation and partnership. The creation story, when understood through the lens of equality, reinforces this theme. By taking Eve from Adam's side, God symbolically demonstrates that humanity was designed to thrive through collaboration and shared responsibility. This narrative of unity extends beyond gender. It speaks to the broader human experience, reminding us that we are all interconnected. Just as Adam and Eve were created to complement one another, so too are all people called to contribute their unique strengths to the collective good. This perspective fosters a sense of community and shared purpose. Understanding the creation story as one of unity also challenges us to reflect on our own relationships. How can we build partnerships that reflect the divine balance of equality and respect? This question is as relevant in personal relationships as it is in broader social and cultural contexts. The reinterpretation of Sila also aligns with the biblical call to love and serve one another. It reminds us that true strength lies in cooperation, not dominance. By embracing this narrative, we can move toward a more inclusive and compassionate society. As we build a narrative of unity, we also confront the divisions that have been perpetuated by traditional interpretations. The story of Eve's creation becomes a tool for healing and reconciliation, encouraging us to see one another as equals and partners in the human journey. This reinterpretation is not just about revisiting the past, it is about imagining a better future. By embracing the values of unity and equality, we can create a world where everyone is valued and respected. The story of Adam and Eve becomes a timeless lesson in the power of partnership and shared purpose. As we've journeyed through the story of Eve's creation, we've uncovered truths that challenge centuries of interpretation and reveal the beauty of God's intention for humanity: equality, partnership, and unity. The mistranslation of a single word, Sila, has shaped how we view gender, relationships, and even ourselves. But today, we have the chance to reclaim this narrative, not as one of hierarchy, but as a testament to the divine plan for mutual respect and shared purpose. This revelation invites us to reflect deeply on our own lives. Are we building relationships that honor equality? Are we embracing our role as partners in the work of unity and love? And most importantly, are we living in a way that reflects the divine image within each of us? These questions challenge us to grow, to connect, and to walk in God's truth. If this message has inspired you, now is the time to act. Subscribe to this channel and become part of a community that seeks to uncover biblical truths and walk closer with Jesus every day. Together, we'll continue to explore the profound messages hidden in Scripture, messages that challenge us, uplift us, and bring us closer to God's purpose. More than ever, the world needs voices that speak truth and light. By subscribing and joining this mission, you're not just supporting the channel, you're taking an active step in spreading God's word and creating a community of love and understanding. So, click that subscribe button now, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and let's grow in faith together. My name is Josue, and it has been an honor to share this message with you. I'm here not as a teacher or preacher, but as a fellow traveler on this journey of discovering God's word. Your time, your attention, and your willingness to listen means so much to me. Together, we're uncovering truths that have the power to transform our lives and the world around us. Thank you for being here today. I hope this message has sparked something in your heart, a deeper understanding, a new perspective, or even just a renewed sense of curiosity. Remember, God's Word is alive, powerful, and ready to speak into your life if you let it. May God bless you abundantly, guide your steps, and fill your heart with His peace. Until next time, stay strong in your faith, walk closely with Jesus, and know that you are loved. This is Josue, signing off, but always here in spirit as we continue this journey together. See you soon, and God bless.